This week on Influence, why sometimes you have to change everything to get unstuck. Hello, listeners, large and small. Welcome to Influence, the podcast about internet creativity and community. I am your host, Matt Silverman, wishing many internets be upon you. If you're new here, welcome. I have been covering technology and internet communities for about 15 years now, and I am obsessed, perhaps clinically obsessed, with creative people, talented people who turn their thing, their passion, their drive, their big ideas into something. Maybe that's a job. Maybe that is a social movement. Maybe that's a community online. And this week, I am thrilled to have a creator who I have been a fan of for a long time, since the earliest days of a website, an up-and-coming indie website called YouTube.com. You should check it out, http://www.youtube.com. Check it out.
Now, is that with the letter U or is that the word U?
No, it's you, like you.
Okay.
Like you, yourself could be on the internet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
like I could broadcast myself?
You could broadcast it. I'm sorry. Whoever's talking,
I'll stop.
They haven't been introduced. Yeah, so I don't know who's talking. You may know him as an absurdist. I like to call him an absurdist comedian who clones himself, who punches eagles. You may also know him as this guy who proposed to his wife on that very website, youtube.com. Kind of weird. And these days, you may know him as I don't know, I'll let him explain, a life documentarian, a self-improvement documentary maker. We'll talk about that in a minute. But truly, no matter what he's making, he never skimps on the comedy. And that's why I'm a fan. Please welcome to Influence, Craig Benzine, a.k.a. WheezyWaiter. Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, I'm glad you put the applause in. Thank you. I mean, I'm glad that the studio here has decided to applaud. That was great. Thank you.
Influence is filmed before a live studio audience, so yeah, I'm glad you could.
That's got to be expensive, man.
Spared no expense.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you. And to describe what I do now, I also have difficulty with that.
Well, that's my first question. How do you describe it? But what I like to ask guests is, like, if a normal person, a friend, a family member, a non-internet person says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" What do you say?
I tend to avoid saying the word influencer. I don't like to say the word vlogger even, and I've never really liked those words. I don't even really like YouTube content creator because content is so broad and it makes it sound like, I don't know, garbage.
Yeah, I agree. I often joke, if I ever take a job where the word content is in my job title, I'm done. Yeah. I got to get out.
Yeah, right. So that's why I never take a job. But I think what I usually say, just so people understand briefly, it's not enough. It's not enough of a descriptor, but I say I make YouTube videos. That's what I tell people. That's like the first thing I say. And then they're usually like, "Huh, what are they about?" And I'm like, "Oh, great. Now I have to answer this question."
Totally.
And I generally say, like, these days, what I do, what's kind of my bread and butter these days is health challenges. Like personal health challenges, even though that's not all I do. Yep. That's like the easiest, quickest go-to.
Right. Which is so different from what you used to do. And we'll talk about that sort of transition in a little bit. My other question here, my bonus question at the top is, what do your parents think you do? Or let's say like an older family members, when you say those words, how do they perceive it? Or do they have like, your parents have been in your videos, so they probably have a closer relationship to it than most. But
my mom, at least, I think my dad too, they watch every video.
Nice.
So they know exactly what I do, and they probably also have trouble describing what I do. Older family members, I mean, a lot of my like a lot of my older family members have died. That's
Right.
sad.
Sorry.
But I don't know. I think they kind of get it too. Like my family gets it because I've been doing it for so long. And in general, the world gets it better than they used to.
Yes.
Like, I think they know that creators do different things, and it's hard to pin down what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that like it's completely different than the way it used to be. It used to be I make YouTube videos, and they would say, "Oh, you can make money from that?"
Yes.
That was like the first question. No one asks that anymore.
Interesting.
Like, yeah,
That's
everyone,
an interesting shift. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone kind of gets it, and I tend to try to mention also that I'm doing comedy. I'm like trying to be funny all the time. It's like, it's not just simply, I'm not a health guru. I don't want people to think I'm a health guru.
Which is why when you say health challenges, like that is such a not the whole picture statement when you explain it. Yeah.
I mean, and then I'll generally say like things like quitting added sugar for a month, intermittent fasting for a month. But occasionally my wife joins me. But sometimes I'm just doing just like random thoughts I have about life and about self-improvement. And that's the main stuff I do these days. But I try to also be silly and dumb with humor, you know?
Yep. Speaking of, for those of you watching or watching on the YouTube channel, I'm going to play a clip of one of Craig's videos, just so if you're not familiar with his work, you can get a sense of his flow, his vibe, and we'll be right back after this.
So I spent a month trying to learn how to do a handstand, and boy, did it turn my world upside down. Occasionally. So, why do handstands? What's the big deal? Absolutely not worth my time, YouTube jerkwad, and that's fair. But, let's put it this way. Think of all the great historical figures that humanity will never forget. Da Vinci, Einstein, Galileo Figaro, Magnifico. Could they all do handstands? Absolutely not, as far as I know. I mean, it's doubtful. So if I can do a handstand, that means I'm better than them at this one specific thing that a lot of people can do that's not that big a deal. But it is to me. And I bet Galileo would have been impressed. He seems like a handstand fan. There's a lot of pictures of him looking up, I imagine, at the feet of handstanders swinging in the air. The dude was an observer. His handstand obsession probably started when someone's feet got in the way of his telescope. Another reason I want to do handstands is to overcome the deep shame I feel from trying to do a handstand 12 years ago every day for a while there. I never succeeded, and I had to quit because my wrist started hurting really bad. If you go back and check out those videos, beware, you will see my belly a lot. Who knew that putting all my weight on my hands without doing any exercise, research, or planning would lead to injury? Point is, that failure has mildly haunted me ever since. I want to be able to do this. And now I have the advantage. I actually do exercise, have some arm strength, and I'm not distracted by soul-crushing loneliness because I have this person who I guess was drawn in by the belly.
So you have been making videos on the internet. I went back, I sorted the channel. Since 2007.
Yeah.
That is 2 years after YouTube.com.
Yeah.
It launched, like existed.
Right. The YOU YouTube.
Yeah. You don't go to YouTube.
Yeah,
that's a different site.
Yes.
So like it's such a young platform. What motivated you to get on there, and what else were you watching or seeing or observing that was like, ooh, I got to try this. I got to do this. Yeah. What was going on in 2007 for you?
Well, I wasn't even I didn't go to YouTube first. I went to blip.tv.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Which didn't even, doesn't exist anymore. But, and I was really mainly inspired by Zay Frank, who, a year before, like probably 2006, I think he did videos every weekday for a year, and it was very short, very fast paced, jump cut editing. Often it was kind of like a Daily Show parody, but if it was just one guy in his apartment, so it was like very news based at times, but also very personal at times, and that kind of blew my mind. I mean, back in my mind, even before I saw that, people were starting to upload videos to different things on the internet, and I was thinking about, would it be cool if I made a movie every day? I called them movies back then. Referring to something as a video wasn't even a thing.
Talkies, as we used to call them.
Talkies, yes.
This is back in the 1920s, 1925?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Got it.
I had my top hat on, and So I back in my mind, I was thinking, what would it be like to make a movie every day? Could I even do that? And then I saw Zay Frank. I'm like, that's how you do it. That's how it can be done. And also, I was waiting tables at the time. I was living month to month. Like I had no savings, and even that was starting to not work. Like I had this one shift that I had 0 tables, and my manager told me, don't even come in tomorrow because you're not going to have any tables tomorrow. It was a very slow time, and I was just relying on that to pay my bills.
Oh my God!
I was like, something's got to change here. And then like that weekend when I wasn't working, I just watched Zay Frank videos, and then started a blog. I started like writing first, just a few days just to get the flow of things, and then he was uploading on Blip TV, so I uploaded on Blip TV, and then immediately shot up to stardom. No, not at all. I had friends watching me, like just like in the tens of people, and occasionally I'd hit like maybe 30 or 40 people, and that was exciting, especially if I got a comment from someone who I didn't know.
Right, just a stranger. Yeah,
it was insane. That was oh my God, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And then like a really good day after like a year of doing it, I think somewhere in the first year, I did also start putting things up on YouTube, obviously because it was 2007, my earliest videos. But a good day was like 300 views. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then it took about, I mean, that led to me getting an office job because I had friends who got me hired to do video.
Okay.
I did a lot of freelance work at the time. I drifted away from waiting tables, and it was kind of awesome at first. Like, wow, it's working. But then I realized I didn't like office life.
Right.
So I started doing videos in the morning before going to work. And there used to be this website back then called YouTube Reviewed. I don't know if you remember it. I don't know. No one remembers it.
No.
when I tell people this, because it was pretty small, but it was like the only place that was like reviewing YouTube people.
Interesting.
And I got their attention, and they did a whole write up about me. And then this YouTuber in New Zealand, his name is Levi. He went by Corporal Cadet. His channel still exists. He doesn't do much on YouTube anymore, but he saw it. He was bigger back then. He was doing a lot more back then. And he tweeted it out. The next day, I had 97 emails, and it was the best day of my life up to that point. Like, wow. I finally felt like it was actually growing in a meaningful way. And
this makes me think about the maturity of these platforms too, because we're saying, was that also 07 or was that a bit later, 08, 09?
That was 3 years, 2 or 3 years later. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So this brings me to, so I'm thinking about the maturity, the platforms are maturing along with your sort of creative output, meaning the amount of human beings with access to broadband and knowledge of Blip TV or YouTube was probably very small, I mean,
relatively
in the world, relatively.
Yeah.
And then for them to find you, and then for these other creators and review sites to find you. And so you're operating for 3 years with like 30 to 40 subscribers, a couple hundred views.
I actually had 32 subscribers at the time that Levi tweeted out my channel.
So like what is in your mind as you keep trucking along? Like, what is the goal? Like, because you got work from it. So was that like, yes, I did it, mission accomplished? Or were you still like, no, I need to become the next Zay Frank sort of situation?
I mean, in the back of my mind, that was still the dream to do more. But it also was motivating, even though I wasn't getting a lot of views, because it was working in some way. I was actually doing what I wanted to do in some way with my office job, which was because of the YouTube videos I was making, even though the YouTube videos, like, hardly anyone was watching.
Right.
But it also, like, it all felt like growth. It all felt like, I feel like that's kind of what it's about, is growth is just a great feeling. It doesn't matter what level you're at.
Right.
And when you're not growing, no matter what level you're at, it doesn't feel good.
Yes.
That's what I've discovered.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. Well, if you don't mind me asking, what was the office job? Was it video related or what?
It was a company called Liquid Print. Also doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the suburbs of Chicago, and I did. They made websites for different businesses around Chicago, and
Mm-hmm.
I was basically a selling point. I was like hey, we also have a guy who could put a video on your website, and so I would occasionally do, like, I did a video for a steel company or like a welding company, and
Was it funny?
I always tried to make things funny, but sometimes it didn't work.
They were like, no, we don't pass.
Yeah.
We don't want that.
Yeah, but a lot of time I spent not doing anything. Like, there was a lot of time there was no work for me, even though I was getting paid, which was great to get paid, but it's not as cool as it sounds to sit in an office with nothing to do.
Yeah,
even though you're getting paid. Yeah, it was kind of soul crushing in a way, and I was also gaining weight because I wasn't waiting tables. I was a bit less healthy.
Right.
Yeah, and so like that like emptiness of not having anything to do also motivated me to like literally get up super early, like 5:30 a.m. when I had to be at work at 10, and just do a video before I went to work. And so when Levi tweeted that out and I actually started getting an audience, that is when I discovered the Vlogbrothers, because Hank and John Green, because I started seeing the word nerd fighter everywhere. And I didn't know what that was. And I researched and I found the Vlogbrothers, and because a lot of nerd fighters were subscribing to me.
Okay.
And then I realized, Hank and John Green they're also inspired by Zay Frank, and they're doing kind of a similar style thing that I'm doing. I mean, I feel like they're nobler and better people than me, but, and harder working than me probably. But
there's two of them, so they can
no fair.
do more, right?
No fair, right?
Exactly.
And smarter than me. Let's be honest. But so I messaged John Green and I said, "Hey, I've found these nerd fighters and they like what I do too." And then he responded, and me and John and Hank have been friends ever since, because we just kind of, I guess we kind of were inspired by the same thing, and we kind of got a similar sensibility. And so then like that first, I don't know, year of finding that audience, I eventually made it up to like 10,000 subscribers, which huge and amazing. And there was growth happening. It still felt incredible.
This is 2010-ish?
2010-ish. Yeah, I think so. And then like, I think it was January of 2010. I always hard to remember if it's 2010 or 2009, but I think it's 2010. That I did a ultimatum at the beginning of January. I said, I'm going to make a video every weekday, because I'd go in spurts where I'd make videos every weekday, but I was mostly making them intermittently. But in that January, I was like, I'll make a video every weekday for January. And if I get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of January, I will make a video every weekday for the rest of the year. I thought maybe if I got to 100,000, I could quit my job and do it. I got to like 40,000 at the end of January, which is incredible, which is amazing. Some
growth.
Bigger YouTubers helped promote me.
Right.
And then I continued on anyway, making videos every weekday for the rest of the year, even though I still had to go to the job, until about halfway through the year. Halfway through 2010, I got to about, or 2009, I'm not sure. I got to around 70,000 subscribers. Okay. And I was making the same amount of money I was making waiting tables. So which is not a lot of money, but it was enough. So I quit my job, which was a pay cut, and just continued on. And then it kept growing for a while.
I want to place this in time, because my memory, this is the time when I started working in media too. So we were covering and observing YouTubers like yourself and others in this sort of like class of YouTubers that were coming up. And you're reminding me that this was like, hey, it's about subscribers, and it's about every Wednesday is the day when you'll get the new thing from me, and it's all these YouTubers that are collaborating and cross promoting each other. And I guess so. We were observing that and covering that as this culture that was emerging, and it's interesting to me that there was money there. Like, I guess what I'm asking is like, where was that money come from? Was it YouTube ads, or were you doing sponsorships? Like,
there were occasional sponsorships, but they weren't that big. It was mostly just AdSense, basically.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was.
Which historically is not, that's not how. I mean, I can't imagine that's how you make a living now. It's other things. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think AdSense is a little better now than it was.
Okay.
Like if I were doing the same thing, which I was doing videos every weekday, so. If I wasn't doing them every weekday, it would have been much less money.
Right.
But every weekday, if I did every weekday now, I think it would be even better than it was back then.
Right.
Although the views would be smaller, and I probably wouldn't be getting the bigger sponsors.
And you'd be dead from doing a video every day.
I'd be dead. Oh, no, sometimes I kind of miss it because it's like it wasn't very high pressure because it was me making stuff up as I went along. Like I didn't have any I wasn't even trying to go viral. I wasn't trying to I didn't have any expectations of anything big. So that's what made it fun, and it was working. So
and you were speaking to the audience that you had, which already knew you and knew what to expect. So just going off the cuff was like, yeah, that's what they want. They love it. On to the next one, right?
Exactly. And then sometimes if I did one that wasn't so good, who cares? I'll forget about it. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do better tomorrow. And I loved that. And I sometimes think about going back to that. But and I think I could do it and it would probably be a pay cut because now I'm focusing more on more mass appeal videos that are going to get more views.
Right.
Because, well, it's satisfying to me. I feel like I'm doing something useful, but also sponsors. Like that's the main source of revenue now. Is the bigger sponsors.
Right. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts and questions about the sort of playing to two audiences of like people who are subscribed and know me versus what is the topic and thumbnail and title that will be recommended to thousands and millions of people, and there's a Venn diagram where those people overlap, and then but those circles are very large. So we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah. I'm interested in the style, the vibe in these early days, and I'm wondering if it is Ze Frank like the origin of the jump cut, fast cut, J cut YouTube style, or was there where did that come from? Because I think my first exposure to it might have been your channel. Okay. I never watched Ze Frank in the earliest days. So I'm wondering, I observed it as like, hey, we're just regular people. We don't know how movies are made. So I don't know what B-roll is or coverage is. Yeah. So I guess I'll just cut here and go to the next word. And then that sort of shortcut, that sort of, let's call it ignorant shortcut, I'm making air quotes for people who can't see me, became the lingua franca of YouTube in those days, and still is. So what do you think about any of that?
I think I can't think of anyone else doing that style quite like Ze Frank was before Ze Frank. I also think it does seem like an obvious style to land on if you are just sitting there with a camera and you don't want to make it too rambly and long, so you just cut it up.
And what was the upload length limit on YouTube back then?
Oh, I don't remember.
10 minutes?
Something like that. My videos were like 2 to 5 minutes. Usually like 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah. It was like, looking back at them now, they look like TikTok videos to me.
Right.
But with less purpose.
There was such I always observe like, YouTube is for short videos, usually with cats. That was like a cultural understanding of like, YouTube is throwaway garbage that is funny to amuse you. And now it's like, today, let's go watch documentaries and movies on YouTube because that's the destination for that
and
stuff.
For me, it was like a third thing. I never was that interested in just the cat aspect of YouTube. I thought what Ze Frank did, and what others were kind of doing at the time, like Philip DeFranco, who I think was also inspired by Ze Frank.
Yes, for sure.
Was its own art form. Like I felt like it was very conscious. It wasn't just, we don't know how to film stuff and we're just going to throw this together. I think Zay Frank knew what he was doing.
Yes.
I think I knew what I was doing. I mean, I went to college I took some production classes. I thought about movies a lot more than I thought about YouTube style. But seeing what Zay Frank did, it wasn't just cutting it up. It was also like jumping in closer, going back, like effectively at the right times. I mean, I wouldn't say that I was always doing it at the right times. It was a bit random, but it was like to me, it was a awesome art form that I think is dying, like because it's much more long form. It's much more about long watch time,
right?
And also maybe it was just a product of its time, and maybe that's fine.
And a lot of it has moved to TikTok and Instagram, and maybe YouTube Shorts, which is a whole other thing.
Right. It feels different though. It feels a little different than it did back in those days. It feels more revenue driven, like attention grabbing than like just its own art form, you know? And I don't know. I miss that kind of style. I still kind of do that style. It's just not, it's much, I also add B-roll. I also add other things.
Right.
And sometimes I get comments that are like, I remember one comment that was more recent comment that was like, challenge yourself to not do jump cuts. Like they don't want the jump cuts, like, cause they see it differently than I do, I guess.
And you're like, bro, that's the best part.
Yeah, that's the best
part.
On. Although the way I'm doing them now, I also kind of agree. I try to avoid them because like a lot of what I do now is talking with my wife or just, it's not really calculated jump cuts. It's
right.
It's just cutting up a conversation.
Yes.
And that I try to hide the jump cuts in those situations as much as I can.
Yep. Well, let's talk about the process, which, early days versus now, which is like how much of it is turn on camera, stream of consciousness, and then make the magic, make the comedy in the edit versus this is scripted, this is planned, or a mix of both. How has that changed, evolved over time?
For a while there, it was, I mean, I go back and forth sometimes. But for a while, it was pretty heavily scripted and planned. Okay. Like, I mean, well, I guess, should I describe like how I got to that point?
I'm very interested.
The intervening years of so after finding my audience in 2010, it grew and grew to around 2012, 2013, it grew up to around 500,000 subscribers. And it was the dream. I don't think it's ever been as fun as those.
I believe
those
it.
Years.
I get it. Yeah.
But also, like it wasn't always fun. It was stressful sometimes. But then that's when YouTube really shifted and started focusing more on watch time as opposed to the subscriber system. And like they took the subscriber, what you're subscribed to, off the front page.
Totally.
That one thing was like a big shift, a noticeable shift in
huge.
My
and it was
views.
Devastating to so many creators because it was you had been focusing on like, this is my audience, these are my people, and now I can't reach them the same way.
Right. So now that's when I kind of started thinking more about titles and thumbnails. I mean, I was always thinking about it, but it was more of a joke before. But this time it was like, oh, this actually matters.
Yeah.
And so then it was like my channel kind of peaked and stayed for like 5 years, but the views slowly declined. Like they declined until 2018. And when I finally decided, okay, I'm not going to do the thing I should have stopped a long time ago, which is like what was good in 2010. I'm gonna shift it. So I took a month off and I started making longer, more purpose-driven things that a general audience would care about a little more. And the first one was called "Why Do People Like Haul Videos?" And that was just me watching haul. It was like, internet comment etiquette, that channel?
I only know of it because I was watching your interview with Jack Conte.
Oh yeah, right.
CEO of Patreon.
Yeah, I might be saying a lot of the same things in this interview.
No. It was a great conversation. And I think he or you referenced that channel. I was not familiar.
I think I did. I don't think he was familiar with it either. But which is surprising. He's pretty popular, but like it's also like it's not for children, this channel. And it's pretty bizarre humor. But he sits down and reacts. He picks a various topic, usually a controversial topic, and will just react to YouTube videos about it and have his weird responses to it. I just kind of stole that style a little bit for the why do people like haul videos, but just watching haul videos, recreating my own haul videos, and when it was longer, it was like 10 minutes, which was really long for my channel.
Yeah, sure.
And it did pretty good. It did better than the videos that I had been doing at the time. But it wasn't amazing. But then the next video was quitting added sugar for a month. And that video went to the front page of Reddit and blew up big, beyond my wildest dreams. By far my most successful video. The first time I really felt like I went viral ever. That was like, okay, I guess that's what I should be doing. And that was a very scripted, very edited. I spent a month editing it, I think, writing and editing it. And also a month experiencing no added sugar with my wife. So it was like 2 months.
Yeah.
But so that from that point on, I was doing videos more like that. So like no internet, vegan for a month, intermittent fasting for a month. I've been doing a lot. I'm still doing those, but I'm not doing them I don't think I'm putting as much time into them as I did that sugar video.
Right. Yeah.
And
my question about the virality is like, millions of people, tens of millions, there's 12 million, 13 million, whatever it's up
right
to.
Right now, I think it's at 12 million something. Yeah.
Did you observe, or you said, oh, this is what I need to do now, but did you observe that these viral hits brought people into the fold as subscribers and repeat viewers, or was it more of a strategy of like, hey, it's the same amount of people, and I need to make these videos for the algorithm, not for the algorithm, but like I need to make them for, like you said, broader audiences, to just reach broader audiences. Then they watch, go along their merry way. Next video, oh, this guy again, watch, go on. Like, do they become loyal subscribers, Patreon members?
I mean, I don't always push Patreon that hard. So Patreon does better depending on how much I'm pushing it, I guess. But as far as loyal subscribers, I mean, my channel went from 500,000 to 1 million in like a year. After that, after sitting there at 500,000 for 5 years, and it doubled.
Okay.
But in a year, but it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel the same as it did in like 2010, 2011.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
It doesn't feel as loyal. It feels because YouTube's just different. It's not.
Yep.
It's not really about finding your people to follow and just be loyal. I mean, that's out there. That still exists, but it feels it's too big now. There's like so much to watch now. So
Correct.
it is really much more about, oh, maybe I'll click on this. Maybe I'll click on that, as opposed to I have to follow everything this person does.
I'm really sad about that. Like I do that for a living and help people do that. And it's like, it works. Like YouTube is the best like algorithmic engine arguably out there. So you can reach more humans than you ever could have. Right. But they don't.
I think that still exists. It just it's hidden. Like you can't see it as much.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And I think the opportunity to create that community is even better now than it was. Yeah. But it's going to be mixed with a lot of casual viewers and negative reviewers, viewers. Unless, you probably move it on to Patreon or some other platform. I think it still exists. It just feels different because it's mixed with everything else. And I'm not focused on it as much. I'm focused more on the broad appeal because maybe I'm afraid. I don't know. Like, because every time I try something that's much more personal and for the community, far less people care.
and your livelihood depends on the success and metrics of your work. So
and a lot of what I do. Yeah, and a lot of what I do is for a sponsor. I mean, it's not like I'm just making a video to the sponsor, but like it is going to be sponsored, and they expect a certain amount, a level of quality and viewership. Like, even though it's not like written in the contract that it has to be this many views, I also just don't want to disappoint. Like, so So if I just do a personal weird video with a sponsor, the sponsor's not going to like that. I'll probably stop getting sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
And my channel, I didn't like the feeling of my channel not growing for 5 years.
Yes. Yep.
So like, I guess it's a mixture of like, I don't know, greed, selfishness. I don't want my channel to die, and I'm kind of afraid of that.
Yep.
I'm being really honest with you here.
Absolutely.
And also it feels good to make something that lots of people like, that don't even know who you are. That feels good, you know?
Yeah. If you made a pie chart of like your revenue, how you support yourself through this creative work, is it mostly Patreon? Is it ads? Is it YouTube? Pre-roll? What is it? Merch? What does that look like these days? Not numbers, but like percentages.
Merch is basically zero, because I haven't even thought about merch in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So, and partly that's personal, because I don't buy a lot of merch myself. I don't buy things that much. And that's not, you could call me a minimalist, but that's just the way I've always been, kind of. I don't really buy things. So I'm not that passionate about making merch. So merch is basically zero. Patreon, I don't know the exact percentages, but Patreon is a smaller part of the pie. Maybe equal part of the pie is AdSense, a little bigger maybe these days. For a while, Patreon was doing better, but I was pushing it harder before. So it's like they're both kind of a small part of the pie. The sponsors are easily the biggest part of the pie.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting to hear, because I always seem to observe creators sort of saying like, advertising is a pain in the ass and it's so fickle. Yeah. If I can just move to a subscription model via YouTube memberships, Patreon, etc., that is so much more stable and in some ways more ethical. Not like advertising not ethical, but like advertising complicates and can pollute. If you're not careful. If you're not careful what you say, and also if you don't believe in what you're promoting. Sure, exactly.
Like I've rejected some sponsors that I just was unsure. Like, this doesn't seem either something I'm interested or doesn't seem good.
Yeah. I know Vladimir Putin is a huge fan, and he was like, "Can I get in there?" And you were like, "Oh." Yeah.
I mean, I'm still open. No, no, definitely not.
That will be the headline of this video. No.
Yeah. But I agree that like it is more fickle. It's more pressure, I think, because I do have to maintain a certain level of viewership and there's expectation.
Sure.
Whereas if I if I focus more on the loyal audience, it's probably more stable, and I just have more freedom, I guess, to do what I want, even though maybe not, because they're also expecting something.
Yeah, I wonder about that too. Yeah, do patrons ever get not mad, but do they get testy if you're not delivering things that they want?
I mean, I've never had like a terrible experience with patrons. Usually, they're very supportive and amazing.
Of course.
Okay, I'll look at exit surveys, and sometimes people will say like they just didn't get as much out of it as they expected. But usually the exit surveys are like, my funds changed and I can't support you anymore. But that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think it goes back to fear for me. Like those I don't know if fear is the right word, but like those 5 years of declining channel, I felt like I was doing what I want and being me for those 5 years, and it just wasn't working.
Yeah,
yeah. And that was really disappointing. Yep. And like I'm afraid that will happen again if I just try to go all in on community as opposed to I'm doing both. Like which you probably also want to talk about, which is like I'm the mass audience videos. I'm trying to hit the masses, but I'm not trying to compromise anything with what people know about me, you know?
Yeah.
And the community. Like I talk to people on Reddit a lot. Like there's a Beard Lovers subreddit.
Yep.
I will post on there. And I respond to comments as much as I can. And, and I do live streams every month on Patreon. So I'm still engaging with the community and seeing what they would like me to do. But I also try to frame it in a more mass appeal way,
Right.
than I used to.
And you, I don't know, outside looking in, I think you're walking the line, you're balancing it in the right way, in a way that I don't know. I can't think of many YouTubers that are like, well, I'm stopping this other thing and not completely changing, but like transforming the mission and the structure of the content in a radical way. Have you observed others who have done that successfully?
I think the more common story is like with old school YouTubers is they just get jaded and quit.
They just stop.
They just see that what they were doing doesn't work. They were being themselves and it's not working anymore. It's not fun. I'm going to move on. I'm going to quit.
Right.
And that's totally valid.
Yep.
Like I get that. I've felt that urge too, but maybe because when I started, I was already 27 years old and kind of knew what I wanted, who I was and what I wanted. And it is just video making. Like, I don't know what else I would do that would make me as happy as this.
Yes.
It would, despite all the problems.
But you're getting at sort of an existential thing that I think about a lot and have been affected by. Like, this is your life's work.
Yeah.
Your mind and face is like on the inside this body of work. It is your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's stuck and it's failing and it's not working. Like, to quit a job or to leave a job is sucks and it's disappointing and it's complicated, but it's not your face. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so for that to be stuck or not working, or to be like, I'm going to abandon this thing that has been my identity for 10 years.
Yeah.
That is an existential
I think,
thing.
Well, maybe another advantage I have for that. So like those 5 years I felt all those things. It felt like there's nothing I can do. I'm doing the best I can with this. But I think I reserved the possibility that there's something else I can do that could be better, that could do better. Mm-hmm. And I think I had that mentality because I was already there when I started. When I at 27, that was the mentality that got me to there, which was, what I'm doing with my life right now is not working. I need to try something else. And I tried for 3 years and I made it work.
Yeah.
So I proved to myself that if I work hard enough, even if it takes a while, I can improve my situation. Mm-hmm. And I did that at 27. I think a lot of people who get started might have a different experience. They might have fallen into it. They might have just not had to go through that. Not everyone. I don't want to simplify, but like, didn't have to go through that like life experience of this isn't working, I need to try something else and make it work with YouTube. Right. I think it was more like, I put up this funny video and it blew up, and now I guess I'll just keep making funny videos.
Yeah. Which is not, going viral once is not an income or a living wage, and it's not reliable. And it sounds to me like, even if you had done nothing in that time, you still would have had a stable enough income, like a runway. Like you had built a runway to transform. So even though you were being experimental, you could say, I'm taking a risk because even if I keep it the same, I can still put food on the table, pay rent, etc. Right?
I was that way until I around 2018. I was actually filling out my resume. I was actually for real. I pulled out my old resume that I hadn't seen in 8 years or so, and I started filling it out, like literally probably weeks before that sugar video blew up, because I was getting to the point where I'm like, okay, we have a kid. Maybe I should do something else. But I wasn't willing to stop trying.
Right.
Right.
All right. Well, speaking of ads and Patreon, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Gregory.
Okay. Gregory. You can call me Gregory if you want.
I think I'm going to do that from now on. Okay. Stay with us. Well, hey there. I was just talking, and now I'm here again during the break to tell you that I launched the show, and I pre-recorded a lot of interviews before launching everything, and then we put out episode 1, and then like a lot of new people came in here to leaving voicemails and YouTube comments and Patreon contributions. And you know what that means? This is more work for me. I gotta re-record the Patreon thanks because a lot of new people gave me money. So, thanks for creating more work. I guess. But truly, thank you. This is the work I want to be doing. I want to be here saying thank you to you. And the support I've received from listeners old and new, friends and family, has been pretty great. Not gonna lie, pretty great. So I just want to say thank you to all the contributors on the Patreon, old and new. But I got to reread these names because we have some new $10 supporters at the executive producer tier. Let me pull this up for you. We've got, and let's mix up the order here, all right? Let's mix it on up. We've got William. We've got Duran, Matthew Scott, Kathy Phillips, Jessica Kybell, Jerry Duran, Dominic Kerr, Bowie Barks, Allie, Wesley Cordell, Shane, Ken M, James Dozier, and Deborah Duberpants. Thank you to the continued supporters and the new supporters. It's been really nice seeing your messages and comments. I really appreciate them. And as you know from the show's history and from the first episode, there is a voicemail number where you can call and leave me a message. You can suggest guests. You can comment on previous episodes. And I'm here to tell you we have a voicemail. So let's play it now.
Call through the public, call. Hey, Matty F. This is Matty D. I'm very glad to see your podcast come across my way. I'm a YouTube premium subscriber to be able to watch that way, but I was actually thinking of a fellow YouTuber, Russ from Retro Game Core. He is a former military person who has switched to doing YouTube full-time in the video game and retro handheld space. So mainly looking at some of the retro consoles as well as primarily handheld emulators. He also has like kind of a blog online where he goes through setup guides and such. So for Steam Deck enthusiasts and such, I think he'd be pretty good. Hope all is going great with you and the fam, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you, Maddie D, for that amazing suggestion. And I'll have you know, I'm already a fan of Retro Game Core. This gentleman, I didn't realize he was ex-military. His reviews of handheld video game hardware, which is like an exploding market right now, are extraordinary. They're incredibly meticulous and detailed and technical, and he's wonderful. And honestly, this is a fantastic suggestion. I enjoy a lot of video game content. I'm trying my best to not, do a lot of tech and video game stuff here. I have another podcast where we focus there. But I think his story does sound interesting, and I am a fan. And now that a listener has requested, I'm going to reach out to Russ and see if he would be interested in being a guest. So thank you very much. Thank you also to Maddie D for being a YouTube premium subscriber. You're giving your money to Google and YouTube, so I'm not thanking you on their behalf. But from what I understand, working in the YouTube business and biznatch, when you view a video as a YouTube premium subscriber, the creator gets a better return on that view than if they were getting an ad impression from a non-paid YouTube member. So for that, I say thank you for supporting creators and for supporting, video work like Russ's channel and hopefully like this one. So thanks to Maddie D. If you want to call in and suggest a guest, or as I announce upcoming guests, you can ask your questions of those guests. You can call 347-871-6548. 347-871-6548. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the voicemails. Thank you for the Patreon subscriptions. And now we must return to Gregory. Is there a single message, comment from your community, from your viewers, that really blew your mind or that changed you in a meaningful way? Do you remember? Or is there a collection of comment responses or messages that are like, I have made an impact here, or something like that?
Okay, I can't think of a specific one. There have been so many great comments over the years. A lot of a common thread, especially earlier days when I was just making random silliness, was people felt like I was helping with their depression. People would tell me, I think there were people who have mentioned like having suicidal thoughts who like I helped them through just by doing my dumb stuff. I remember that happening more. I can't think of one comment, but there were more than one comment of that kind of thing early on. And that was like, geez, okay, wow, this is more important than it feels like when I'm making it.
Yeah.
But and a more recent one on the Beard Lover subreddit, someone posted a long post which was about how I helped them learn English. They didn't say what part of the world they were in, but they I literally helped them learn how to speak English while they were watching, and they just wanted me to know that I really, really am impacting their life. And like that felt great.
That's awesome. Yeah. It reminds me, that first part reminds me like that, like humor and comedy, levity, entertainment really matters more than we give it credit for. It is a way to soothe. Is it a way to relax? It is a way to recalibrate life when life can be very dark.
I used to think of like, this is something I miss about what I do now. There's a lot of things I miss about 2010, 2012. But one of I used to think of those kind of videos as like adult Mr. Rogers, which is like, it was there were consistent things happening in each one. It was like a familiar face and familiar actions and ideas happening that you could come back to and see the next one. Like, what's he up to this time? How is he going to run to the coffee this time? And like, just like Mr. Rogers was like, every show he would open the door. He'd take off his coat and put on his inside coat and change his shoes and have his same songs every time. It was just little iterations on the same thing. Which as a kid, I loved that so much. Like it was so familiar. It was like family.
Yep.
And I think if that kind of video series and the entertainment, I think that's what I think that has value. And I don't think that happens that much. Or if it is happening nowadays, I don't know where it is.
I was about to ask, is there anyone doing something like that? Are there channels you watch for comfort or regularity like that these days?
The only one I can think of, well, if I think harder, maybe there's more, but the only
or
real
a podcast or a TV show, whatever it is, right?
I mean, Vlogbrothers seem like the ones that are still keeping up that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But even they tend to go sometimes with heavier topics and like more mass appeal topics, which isn't, again, wrong or anything. It's just, I don't know. I feel like I'm just a unique pioneer of that kind of thing in 2010.
Yep.
And there aren't that many people that did that or do that now. I still think about going back to that because it does feel like something's missing. It feels like that feeling of that familiar content creator, but it would have to be like every weekday, something like that. Like it'd have to be
Do you think it needs to be that regular to make that impact?
It doesn't have to be, but I feel like that's part of the value of it is like this daily, it's sort of like a daily crossword or a daily, or spelling bee, Wordle, whatever. It's like that familiar sort of daily thing, which if it's not daily, it feels like it's too infrequent that people won't make it that regular.
Yeah. A ritual.
Yeah. And it also, if I were to do that kind of thing on a weekly basis, I'd probably get up in my head and think the next one has to be more important because I have more time to think about it.
Right. I get that.
I don't know. And I think about doing that all the time. And I've actually tried a few times on my second channel, Wheezy News, in the past 5 years. I've done spurts of like every weekday, something silly, but I never stick with it. I don't know why.
Yeah. We know what your most popular video is. We've covered that. It's the quitting sugar for a month.
Yeah.
What is your favorite video if you had to pick one of
favorite
the
of the last 5 years or
of all? No, like favorite of all time.
Oh boy. Well, there's like 1,500 videos, so let's see here. Of the last 5 years, I think one of my favorites is I did one about my morning routine, or about a new morning routine. Like, I tried to do the perfect morning routine. That video ended up being, I think, better and more visually interesting and more profound than I expected. I can't remember what it's called exactly, but it's like I think it's in the last couple years, or last year. I'm gonna find it, but I think that's one of my favorites of the last 5 years. I also really like the going vegan video a lot. Vegan for a month, even though I'm not vegan anymore, but I just like how it turned out. I think I put the most time in that video of any video. But as far as all time, that's really hard to pick, because I could go with like longer sketch comedy kind of videos, or I could go with just one of the random short videos. One of the random short videos I can think of that just really like encapsulates perfectly all the kind of videos I was doing back then is Poe Toaster. There was this. The videos about several things, like all of them were. It's kind of nonsense, but it just, all the jokes kind of worked.
Right.
It was Edgar Allan Poe at his grave. Every year, someone came and brought flowers and wine or champagne or something and toasted him. Every year on his birthday or on his death day, I can't remember. And there was a news story about how he stopped, like, or he or she stopped doing it. Maybe they
mystery
died.
Person, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's like the main story of that video. It's called Poe Toaster. And I remember one thing I said, so I did this thing for a while where I would zoom in real close to my mouth to speak for the audience.
Yes.
And I would speak with soft R's. So like WheezyWaiter, how you do? Why you say that, WheezyWaiter? Something like that, you know. And so in that video I did, why you toast Poe no? Why you toast Poe no more, Poe Toaster? Like that. And that really I don't know, struck a chord with the audience.
Where's the T-shirt? Come on. Speaking of merch.
I know. I don't think about merch. And I don't know why. Maybe because every time I've tried, I get disappointed. Like people aren't that interested in the merch that I make. But that's probably one of my favorites of the typical early WheezyWaiter videos.
Yes.
But then there was another video, a couple other videos years later that are longer, not typical, but really, really good ones. There was Clone Hard, which is like
I think
it's like a 10-minute like epic Die Hard parody that I made with my friend Jake, and he put a lot of effects in it and everything. It was like a short movie. That's one of my favorites. And then there was another short movie which was How to Stop a Robber or something. It was me and China, my wife. Also felt like a short movie. It was shorter, it was simpler, but I put a lot of time into the effects of it and the story of it. I don't remember if that's what it's called, How to Stop a Thief or something like that. I end up getting into an Iron Man costume in it.
Nice.
And then a third one, Bad Parkour, I think is a good one, which is I have a friend, Rob Scallon, also a YouTuber. He does like Pantera on banjo or something. That's like a video he did. He does a lot. He's very successful music-based YouTuber. Lives in Chicago. We hung out a lot in Chicago. Like I feel like I made him in a way. I showed him the way. I was his he was my Padawan, I guess.
Yes.
But he also is a skater, and so he grabbed the camera on skates and followed me around. What he was doing was much more amazing than what I was doing, which was bad parkour. I was like, I'd run along the curb or like spin around a pole and like put a word up as the name of the move as I was doing it.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorites. That one actually is the first time. That was probably 2013, 2014. And it got like 600,000 views, which was the most I had at the time.
Okay.
And so that one was the first time I felt like I went a little viral.
Right.
Like that was like not like big viral like the sugar video, but like like I was like, oh, I actually went kind of viral here.
Right. Yep.
And so those videos, I think, are the favorites that I can think of.
I really like hearing this because it sounds like the things that the mechanics, the sort of the structure, the scripts, the concepts, the special effects, I can tell that you're like, oh, that was so cool. And even though maybe it wasn't the biggest video, it was like, that's the one that was most interesting or fun to create, or I love how it looks when it came out.
Yeah, actually, all of those for like, especially Clone Hard. Yeah,
yes, yeah,
yeah. It was really fun to make.
Get that. Fun to make. Yes, or that you step back from it and you're like, shit, that looks good. Like this came out good. I like, even if it's not like the big hit or people didn't get it or whatever like that. I get that. I relate.
I was a little disappointed with how Clone Hard ultimately did. It didn't. Not a lot of people saw it at the time. It's grown a little more since then, but even at the time, I'm like, I don't care. I love this video.
Yeah.
But it did make me not want to do that video all the time because
so much work.
It was a lot of work. It took a lot. I had to stop doing other videos while I did that video.
Exactly.
And it didn't do ultimately that well.
Yep.
Which is disappointing. But I always think about going back and making a sequel.
Yeah.
I might still, even though it's like way past its prime.
7 people will know and be like, yes.
Yeah.
The clone stuff back in the day, was that inspired by? Because I always, you and others, I just envisioned it as like, hey, I'm alone in my apartment. I need a second character to talk to.
That was definitely probably the main instigator.
Okay.
Like, because it's just like, that's an obvious fun thing to do. I think I was inspired by the first person I saw do it was Zay Frank. He actually did it in at least one video. There's one video where he had a conversation with himself. There was like 1 or 2 brief split screens of him on one side of a table and another. He wasn't known for that. He didn't do that a lot, but he did. Maybe a lot of people don't even realize. A lot of people don't even know who he is now, which is sad. But
is he still active these days?
Yeah, he does. Well, for a while he was running BuzzFeed video.
Yeah.
And then right before that, he had the show with Zay Frank, or was it a show? The show, and then he stopped, didn't do videos for a long time. Then he changed it to a show with Zay Frank. It was either or I can't remember which is which, and that was much later, like 2013 or 14. And then BuzzFeed's like, hey, do you want to run our video division? He's like, okay, I'll do that. And then he also did a few true facts about like little animal documentaries with his hilarious narration. And that's mainly what he does now. He's just doing those videos all the time. Because they're clearly the most successful videos that he does.
Yeah.
Again, he's kind of doing the same thing. Like if he went back to what he used to do, they just wouldn't do as well.
Right.
Which is sad because it's good.
I know. I know.
But it's like, I guess the internet back then was much more about, the expectation was much smaller because there were less people. So like a smaller audience felt like a bigger audience.
Every day I'm like, it was different. Yeah. And it was better in some ways, but also I don't want to be an old man saying, well, back in my day, it was so much better.
I'm always very careful about that too, because I would argue that what it is now is better on net positive, because the amount of information you can get, the amount I come across 30-minute video essay every day from someone I've never heard of.
Totally.
Doing it well. Telling me something I never knew about the world.
Yeah.
And there's so much of that. I mean, there's a lot of false stuff and a lot of pitfalls in that, but I think net positive because there's so much good stuff and more people doing this as a career. It's so much, it's easier to do this as a career than it was back then.
Yep.
And so I think ultimately it's better. We're going to just lose some things.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, this leads me to maybe my final couple questions here, which is like, if there's an aspiring creator, maybe that is YouTube or other platforms today on the internet, who asked you for advice, and I'm sure they do. What do you talk about? What do you say? What do you recommend?
Well, I would say you might want to ask someone who made their start more recently than me, because
that's fair.
Because I don't know what it's like to start from zero here, but at this time, but I would first warn. I also don't want to sound like an old man, but it's going to take more work than you think.
Yeah.
And accept nothing for a while. I think this is the hardest thing to get over, is that you're going to want to quit when you don't see results early. Even after a year you don't see results, you're going to want to. That's going to be frustrating. That's going to be very frustrating. It took me 3, and that was back in 2007. So, I would say stick to it. It's probably going to take a long time, and if it doesn't take a long time, that might also be to your detriment, because you don't have enough time to learn to get over the frustration.
Right. That's interesting.
And stick to it, and stick to what you want to do, because, and this is a very cliche response, but I think it's true. Because if you compromise on what you want to do just to get the audience, you'll be stuck doing what you don't want to do for the rest of your career. I mean, you can change. I've changed. People shift, but that's not easy either.
But that's another multiple years to transition the shift too. Yeah.
Yeah. And probably more frustrating, because your comments will be filled with people being like, do the old thing, do the other thing. Whereas when you start from zero and no one's telling you that. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to figure out exactly what you want. I still struggle with exactly what I want, but try to have some idea of a plan of what you want, what you like to make, and stick to it for a while. It's going to take a while. Yeah, that's, I guess, the best advice I can give.
Love it. Yeah. Before we get out of here, are there any big projects or new things or new videos that you're excited about, that you're comfortable teasing, sharing here?
Well, I also said this in the Jack Conte interview, but I want to get, like, in the future, I want to start doing things that aren't about me. That's something that I rarely try. Everything's been self-improvement based. So I have some video ideas, series ideas-ish coming up. Like tomorrow, no, 2 days. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go hang out with a friend of mine who's an engineer, and he inspects bridges. I'm going to go hang out. I'm going to spend a day with him. It's going to be, I don't know what the title is going to be of the video, but probably something like a day in the life of a bridge inspector, or who's making sure our bridges don't fall down. Yeah. And because I think about that when I'm driving. Like I drive over a bridge, and
who doesn't?
Are we sure is anyone checking on this? Like, is this going to stay up?
Or like, how did we actually make this? Like, how is it possible that this thing swinging in the air is like supporting cars? Like, how could that be real?
Yeah. So I have this friend, so this will be like partially trying to answer those questions, but also just like, what's it like to inspect these bridges? I'm going to put on waders. We're going to go out in the water and look at bridges.
Nice.
I have a waterproof case for my phone to shoot video of it. And I have a long list of ideas of different jobs, different walks of life, and like try to find people who will be willing to allow me to follow them around with a camera.
Love it.
That sort of thing. I might do one with John Green, actually. What day in the life of John Green?
Love it.
And I'm also finishing up a documentary that is about Japanese Green Bay Packer fans. That's yeah. Which I've been working on.
Who live in the U.S. or who are in Japan?
They're in Japan, but a friend of mine is a businessman who went to Japan and found them. He's from Wisconsin, and he's not a not wealthy man. So he flew them all to a Green Bay Packer game in Green Bay, and he got a couple of friends of mine. I was unrelated to this at first, and he got them to shoot the thing, and then he finally roped me into editing the documentary, which I've been doing slowly for years now.
Okay,
but I'm finally literally only have to do the credits, and then it will be done.
Amazing.
And then after that, I have been taking notes and thinking pretty hard about a screenplay for a movie that I want to make. I don't want to just write the screenplay. I want to make I want to shoot and make a movie here in Madison where I live.
Okay.
And so that'll probably the next year or two is going to be navigating. How do I keep making YouTube videos and doing all of this?
Yes. where will the documentary go? Is it going to be a YouTube thing, the Japanese Packers fans?
That's still, we don't know yet. I think we're going to send it to festivals. And see what happens. And maybe it'll ultimately end up on my channel. I don't know.
Because when you say that sentence, Japanese Green Bay Packer fans, you're like, what the heck? And then but then I'm instantly reminded that like many people in my family love soccer teams from Europe. And so we're not from there. We don't live there. So it's like, it's weird, but it's not that weird, but it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. And I will say like, I think it's going to be pretty interesting. It'll be most interesting for people from Wisconsin, I think, but and people from Japan.
Yes,
but I don't expect a huge thing out of it. But it is like a step towards making movies like that. That's the way I see it. Mm-hmm. Even I'm not doing good advertising for this documentary right now, but
I'm subscribed. I'm ready.
All right, cool. But yeah, and maybe it'll ultimately end up on my channel. This is some other good advice for starting out. Mm-hmm. Don't expect a lot. I've been working on this documentary for years. I don't have it's not a pipe dream of mine that this is going to ever go anywhere. When I was making YouTube videos early on, I never went viral for so long. It was just a slow growth of an audience, and I didn't expect much. If you don't expect a lot, you're not going to be as disappointed, I guess,
or that there are unexpected things that come from that sort of work or creation, meaning, hey, this video has like 2,000 views, but one of those views sent you an email that led to another conversation that led to a job or a gig or a future video or whatever.
Yeah, you never know. And so that's why I kind of erred on the side of just do what I want, which could be absurd, silly. Not everyone's going to understand it. But it's what I think is funny. Yep. And just keep doing that and don't worry about it not going viral. If you're just constantly trying to go viral, to me, that's like, it's just a hard way to live.
A hard way to live. I think we'll end it there. Craig, thank you so much for being a guest on Influence. This was a fantastic conversation.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it. I love talking about myself.
Excellent. We hope you keep doing it on YouTube and wherever else you end up.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you again to Gregory Benzine, WheezyWaiter, for bringing his wisdom and his absurd brain to this program. I've been learning from Craig as a fan since 2009, 2010, when I was figuring out this whole YouTube thing. And I'm thrilled that he could be here. So thank you again, Craig. And thank you to you, the listeners who make this program possible. If you are interested in supporting the show, you can head on over to patreon.com/influencepod. Even if you are not in a place to contribute, you can still subscribe and get updates, emails about new episodes come right into your inbox, teasers on upcoming guests, behind the scenes, maybe some videos or some images, maybe some sort of hey, here's what's coming up kind of stuff. So you can subscribe and it comes right in your inbox. It's pretty handy. And if you do want to support the show financially, which is always so appreciated, you can get your name read on the program every single week. You can get ad-free episodes. You can get special Discord perks. Speaking of that Discord, discord.gg/influencepod. It's the place where the listening community talks about future guests, current episodes, weird shit that they're looking at, finding on the internet. There's really no rules. We just hang out there and have fun. Discord.gg/influencepod. And if you're an audio listener, this very show is also now on YouTube. So if you want to see my stupid face and the amazing, beautiful faces of these stunning guests, you can head on over to youtube.com/Influence Podcast. YouTube. It's a place for videos and also podcasts, apparently. So I recommend you check it out there. If you subscribe, it helps the channel grow and reach more people. So I really do appreciate that. And I would love for you to email me. The email address, again, it's very challenging to get an email address in 2024 that is not already taken or squatted on. So I would like to direct your attention to influencepod69 at gmail.com. That is influencepod69 at gmail.com. And of course, longtime listeners know that you can call me. I will not answer the phone, but you will get a voicemail. A pre-recorded message, and then you can leave me a pre-recorded message. It's like we're having a conversation, but asynchronously. That means not at the same time. I will not be there to answer the phone, but I will probably play your voicemail on the program. You can comment on an episode, you can ask a question, you can sing a song, whatever, man. It's a lot of fun. And longtime listeners know it's really fun. That number is 347-871-6548. 347-871-6548. Everything I just said is in the show notes. It's in the YouTube description. It's in the notes of the podcast. So just go down there, click on it, copy, paste, whatever. And I hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you next week.